little story about. So here's a little story about the history of my owning this DVD and then not owning it. Um, me and a couple friends, Sean O'Brien and Douglas Delahaye, we saw the Bob Dylan documentary No Direction Home. And this was 2005. We saw it in theaters, I believe. Um, I'm actually looking at my copy of it right now. No Direction Home is a well, actually, I guess we saw it on TV. It was a PBS documentary. It's 3 hours, two parts. Let's see, it's 207 minutes. No Direction Home was we were so affected by it that we started looking at other kind of outlaw musicians and such, and we were big fans of Townes Van Zandt, and we had seen the Be Here to Love Me documentary about Townes, which he's pictured there. Um, Quite possibly the best singer-songwriter apart from Dylan. I mean, obviously it's up to interpretation. No, Dylan will always be my number one influence in songwriter, but Townes is right up there. Anyway, we had seen these two DVDs, and I purchased. Now both of these things are kind of spread out. So we saw the PBS documentary. I can't remember if we saw it in theaters or watched it live on PBS. It might have been on TV, and we watched it on PBS, 2005. Um, Shortly thereafter, and I'll get to the Heartworn Highways DVD in a minute, but shortly thereafter, we were at Starbucks with our girlfriends, and no, the No Direction Home documentary, which chronicles Bob Dylan's early '60s appearance up to the '66 tour of America and England and subsequent motorcycle crash in '66. Uh, it had one of his bootleg series. The soundtrack to that movie, that film, is a bootleg series. It's a double disc album. Of course, I wanted to get that. I had several bootlegs of his, and these are official bootlegs. 'Cause people were bootlegging Bob Dylan for so long that I think he just started making actual releases of these bootlegs. The basement tapes, the Whitmark demos. There's so many. They're still going today. There's so much material. Anyway, we see this amazing record, the double disc No Direction Home soundtrack, on the shelves at Starbucks. Sean and I look at each other and we go, "This is wrong. This is fucked up." And I say, "You know what, man? You and I both know that album shouldn't be on these shelves. Starbucks has no right to have this record." Now, before I get into what happens next, there's a scene in No Direction Home where Bob Dylan he's in his early career, probably 61, 62, and he's really up and coming in Greenwich Village. He's kind of living the bohemian life, crashing on people's couches, and it cuts to this interview of a gentleman who's recalling a time where Dylan, I think he had just played a gig, and he wanted to. He didn't have a place to stay, so this guy, he says, "Why don't you crash at my apartment or whatever? We'll listen to records, and you can have a place to stay." So Dylan comes over, and they're listening to records, and then the guy being interviewed, I can't remember his name, he says, "Here, I'm gonna play you some real rare records, some good stuff. This is my private stash." And he says, So they start listening to these records, and these are rare, very rare. You can't find them anywhere. And Dylan knows this. He knows the records. He's never heard them, but he's eating it up. He's very, very pleased to be hearing these records. And they listen to them for a while, and then Dylan goes to sleep. In the morning, the guy wakes up. Uh, Dylan's gone, and so are the records. And in the documentary, it's very funny because he goes, the guy being interviewed about this whole thing, he says, Dylan, I played these records for Dylan, and then when I woke up in the morning, he had left, and he had taken those records. And then it cuts to Dylan present day 2005, and he goes, now those were very rare records. You couldn't find those anywhere, and proceeds to kind of defend what he what he did. And so um, I I referred at the time when we watched that Dylan documentary, I said that's the Bob Dylan defense. When someone has when you see something rare, you feel that it would have a better home. That's the Bob Dylan defense. Which we thought was very funny. And so we're in the Starbucks, and I say, you know what, Sean? Bob Dylan defense. I'm stealing this bootleg album. So I take it off the shelf with pride, feeling I'm doing what's right. Sean and I walk out the door with the double album. So yeah, fuck Starbucks. So yeah, I think I still have it somewhere. I love that album. Uh, it's got. I was young when I left home. It's got all kinds of rare recordings, live recordings. The recording of him in '66 in Britain when he says, when the audience calls him Judas because he's playing rock and roll. And he's got a giant American flag behind him, just trolling the shit out of these fucking assholes, who are telling him, what he should do, which is kind of the history of Dylan's career. Great album. Fast forward to when I buy the Heartworn Highways DVD. We watched the Townes Van Zandt DVD, and I hadn't watched Heartworn Highways yet. I had the DVD, and I was waiting for a good time. I was waiting to watch it, and I hadn't gotten around to it. And it probably sat on my shelf for about a month, maybe more, 2 months, something like that. One day, it's just gone from my shelf. And I still don't know how it disappeared. I didn't move it. I know that much. So I suspect it was one of my close friends. I won't name any names, but I've named them already. But I won't name them again. I suspect, due to my lack of watching that film when it should have been, because this is a classic, it's hard to find. I think the DVD nowadays is like $50 used online. It's rare. I suspect that due to this lapse of judgment and not giving this film its due respect, the Bob Dylan defense was used on me. And I can't argue with the Dylan defense. I really can't. I think it's sound. So, hats off to you, whoever used the Bob Dylan defense to steal this DVD from me, but the joke's on you, motherfucker. I found it at McKay's earlier this week for $16.99 or $95 or whatever. It was, and I knew I wanted to find it. I knew I'd never been to McKay's here in Nashville, and I started looking for it, and there it was in the documentary section under like Nashville collection, and it was in. They got all these DVDs laid out, and there's most of them don't have hard plastic covers over them, but this one did. I said, there she is. Now's the right time. So I watched it. I was very moved. Uh, and I'm happy to share it here on Twitch. And I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to take a breather, and then Children of Men coming up next. I've been the Monitor. Thanks for tuning in.